Hi, this is Heather Gifford, and this is Module 1. I've got a narrated PowerPoint available for you. We'll be talking today about leadership styles, leadership characteristics, and emotional intelligence in the profession of nursing. Objectives for the PowerPoint today are to compare and contrast three styles of leadership. Three specific styles we'll be talking about are authoritarian, democratic, and laissez-faire. We'll also talk about the differences between leadership and management. I'll encourage you to consider your own strengths when considering whether or not you are a leader, a follower, and are effective at managing your own person as well as certain circumstances. And then we'll utilize an emotional intelligence assessment tool as part of the module as well, to help you to identify your personal strengths, and then from there identify goals that will help you to be a better leader, usually using the strategies that you'll learn about taking. So let's start first by talking about leadership. There are specific traits and behaviors that are inherent in leadership. The traits are typically a person with very high intelligence, integrity. They're motivated both internally and intuitively. They communicate very well, are directed, self-confident, assertive, usually pretty persistent and creative, understand how to manage and tolerate stress, are willing to take risks to achieve certain goals and objectives, and then are open and able to accept criticism in a constructive way without being defensive, but more focused on solutions and growth personally and for the organizations or the departments that they are responsible for. Now, those are all leadership traits. And those traits contribute obviously to behaviors that are typically seen among leaders. So leaders have great critical thinking skills, and as I said before, are focused on solving problems or oriented in a way that resolves issues. Have respect for others and are usually good listeners, have good communication skills, and again, clear goals and outcomes driven, solving problems for the benefit of the people that they're serving. So think a little bit, if you will, as we move forward about people that you've encountered in leadership roles or who are leaders. And as we talk about these different traits and behaviors, see if you can recall times when the people you would consider leaders have demonstrated these skills. Now, leaders wouldn't have the ability to achieve the goals that they identify or that they set for themselves and their teams if they didn't have team members who were followers. Followers are a very, very important part of any leader's strategies, truthfully, to identify followers who are enthusiastic and intelligent, who participate or are engaged in the organization or in the pursuit of those goals. Followers are usually confident and honest. They have credibility with the team members that they work with because of these characteristics. They have a sense of ownership and commitment to the organization or the place where they work. And they manage themselves well. And by that, I mean they understand their role, they understand their emotions, they're usually cool, collected individuals that people look to solve problems and are informal leaders, truly, in a group. It is not always challenging to be a leader when you have great followers or a great team, but the first of the followers, if you will, that embraces a new idea or a change or a procedure or a policy that is new is really the strongest person oftentimes in a group, because they show the rest of the team how to follow the leader. Now, leadership and management are two very different things. Managers typically are appointed to positions or apply for positions, and management helps to define the roles that people are in, responsibilities, if you will. So managers have to do a great deal of planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, controlling. They gather data. They ensure that things run smoothly. They have authority and are official in their titles, as I said, to achieve objectives that are set either by their organization or by someone that they report to. So they have certain tasks that they have to accomplish. They orient new staff, evaluations, terminations, schedules, make assignments, are responsible for budgets, meet with staff and superiors in hospitals, physician relationships, and then, as I said, they collect data. Any quality improvement, tracking of material information to help identify improvement strategies is always a responsibility. If we're talking about nursing, a nurse manager has to be good at all of these organizing of these tasks to ensure that their team has what they need and that their unit runs smoothly. Now, leadership and management, as I said, are two very different things. You can be a good manager without having you can be a good, let me rephrase that. You can be a good leader without being a manager, but a good manager has both management and leadership skills. So let's talk about those three leadership styles. And again, I'll encourage you to consider leaders that you've known and people that you've come in contact with when we talk about each of these styles, and explore that each of these styles is appropriate for certain situations, but being unbalanced would be a person who's unable to identify when to use one particular style or not. An autocratic leader focuses on tasks. They're great in emergencies. They know exactly what needs to be done. They direct others to do it. There's hardly any hesitation. And in an emergency, like a code, for instance, you need an autocratic leader, someone who does not hesitate to respond and usually doesn't stop to ask others input. Now, a democratic leader is someone who really does do that, ask for input, includes the team, usually is very collaborative. They are typically very mature emotionally, and they help to develop those same skills in the followers or people on their team. Most democratic leaders have team members or followers who respect them quite a lot for that collaboration. Now, a democratic leader can demonstrate, as I said, autocratic leadership styles at times. And in some situations, a laissez-faire attitude is also beneficial, where as a general rule, you wouldn't want a leader or manager who's distant or does not respond in a timely manner, or really assist in making decisions when they need to be made, or leading when things get difficult. But there are times that a laissez-faire style does work well. When a team is growing and decisions aren't as timely, but working through the process of coming to a decision is a growing opportunity for the team. So a good leader may take a laissez-faire approach at times to allow for growth among their team. And again, knowing when to use the right and appropriate leadership style is the key. So there are also different theories about leadership style, and there are two I'll just mention briefly: transactional versus transformational leaders. Transactional leaders think of it as a transaction. They focus on actions, daily operations, checking boxes, getting things done. But a transformational leader wants to change or transform individuals. They have great vision, long-term focus, and their desire is to develop people in their organizations, and again, to meet goals and objectives. So a transactional leader might be one that is a good manager, but lacks some of the communication or perhaps emotional intelligence, just to tell you that's what we're going to talk about next, that the transformational leader has. Knowing when and where to implement specific or use specific leadership styles is key for a transformational leader. So as I said before, effective leaders and managers and followers have to have specific skills, traits, competencies, maturity, and emotional awareness in order to achieve their goals. This graph shows two different perspectives for us to consider when we talk about emotional intelligence. And I'll define emotional intelligence next, but it all boils down to our ability to be aware of ourselves and aware of others. So what we see if we have a personal competence is that we are self-aware. We are aware of ourselves. We see ourselves. And what we do as a result of that is manage ourself well. We manage our emotions. We manage our responses, our reactions to things. So people with high emotional intelligence are personally competent in that they are aware of themselves and they manage themselves well. Social competence is the other hand of that, or the other side of that, is being aware of their environment and others. So that is having a social awareness. Why people think things that they do. What does their body language tell us? One of the earlier slides, we talked about respecting differences. So people with high emotional intelligence, who are typically good leaders because of these traits, have a great sense of social awareness, and they respond to others in what they do by building good relationships. They manage those relationships well. They change their leadership style to suit the needs of the people around them. So that's just a brief introduction to the way to consider how emotional intelligence impacts leaders and managers and followers. So we'll define emotional intelligence now, and cited here you can see Mayer, Solavi, and Caruso, which is the full references in your reference page at the end of the PowerPoint. But they define emotional intelligence as the ability to perceive and express emotion, to assimilate emotion in thought, understand and reason with emotion, and regulate emotion in self and others. Basically the definition that I shared with you regarding both personal competence and social competence, and how we are aware and manage ourselves and our environment. So emotional intelligence is different from what you may have considered or thought of or known of before, which is the IQ, or cognitive intelligence. So we're not talking about achievement or aptitude or cognitive intelligence, or really personality. Emotional intelligence is not static. It changes over time, And that is very exciting, and that the more we learn about our emotional intelligence, the better we can be at becoming good leaders and improving ourselves where we identify we have opportunity. So just to reiterate the differences between the IQ or intelligence quotient and the EQ or emotion quotient, all often termed also about emotional intelligence. The IQ, cognitive, intellectual, analytical, rational. The EQ, we're talking about emotions, social, communication, and relational abilities. The IQ is about information, memory bank, vocabulary, knowledge, very cognitive again. We talk about the emotion quotient or intelligence, emotional intelligence. We're really referring to an individual's ability to grasp their own needs and wants, as well as understand others' needs and wants. A high IQ, someone with a high IQ, is very good at organizing and acquiring knowledge, and someone with a really high emotional intelligence is great coping with their environment and demands and pressures. So if you think about what you need from a leader, you need them to be intelligent, but they do need to absolutely be able to cope and understand others' wants and desires, as well as build relationships. What can you do? As I said before, your emotional intelligence is not static, it changes. So you can work to build better communication, improve your relationships, promote better work environments, coach, manage, deal with conflict, resolve conflict, manage others' expectations, improve your own productivity. Leaders build teams based on those relationships. They are oftentimes good leaders are selected and promoted because of their ability to cope and do these things that people with high emotional intelligence can do. They are able to retain employees because people like to work for them and work with them. So in closing, I would just say here are some references for you to use. Please feel free to research some more about emotional intelligence. The next thing in your module will be for you to use an online. There is a suggested assessment tool for emotional intelligence in your module, but you're free to search with any search engine you'd like to locate another one if you'd like to, but assess your own personal emotional intelligence. The discussion component of our module will also lead you to engage in discussion with your peers and identify goals for yourself based on what you learn about different leadership styles, based on your experience about leaders and what you've experienced in your life with various people in different leadership styles, and then what you learn about your own emotional intelligence, strengths, and opportunities. Develop 3 goals to help you improve your emotional intelligence, thereby improving your ability to be good leaders, whether you are in a formal leadership position or whether you are an informal leader. And I will say to close that every one of you as a professional nurse, once you complete your education, will have opportunities to lead, and never for a minute forget that it is part of your professional responsibility to lead and role model and mentor the next generation and your peers as well. So thank you very much for your time and attention during the narrated PowerPoint. I hope you have found it useful and helpful during this module. Happy leading.